Okay, thank you. So declare the meeting open to the public. Welcome members to the 56th meeting of the Public Accounts Committee in this 22-27 mandate. I advise members that the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online. However, there could be a slight delay moving into any private session or back into public sessions, so please be patient. I just want to advise those in the public gallery they're welcome to use mobile devices as long as they're in airplane mode and all devices are muted. They can connect to the Assembly Wi-Fi. Password details are available on the gallery rules, and it's not permitted to take photographs or record any of the meeting. So just move through the agenda. Agenda item number 1, apologies. We've received apologies from the Chair, Daniel McCrossan, MLA, and Colm Gildernew, MLA. I think we have everyone else. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item 2, the draft minutes. I refer members to the pack for a copy of the draft minutes of the meeting of the 13th of November, which are at pages 7 to 13 of the meeting pack. Can I ask members, are they in agreement with these minutes?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 3, declaration of interest. Members, if you could consider the full agenda for today's meeting and make any relevant declarations. Any members got any declarations?
APS to Communities Minister, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? No. Oh, Padraig, sorry.
Chair, sorry, it's not really. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Yeah. So just a few, and I know we're considering a few different items, but one of mine will be as a former teacher, and another one will be just with several GPs in the family and a family member who's was a former BME rep as well.
Thanks very much, Padraig, and members, just as things arise, feel free to chip in with any declarations of interest as you feel the need to be declared. So thanks very much. No items are under Chairperson's business for today. Moving to agenda item 5, which is matters arising. If I could refer members to page 17 of the meeting pack for today to correspondence from Mike Farrar, the Accounting Officer for the Department of Health, regarding gaps in oversight of the effective use of resources, the EUR policy, and inconsistencies in recording and monitoring of procedure data across trusts. Mr Farrar advises that while the Department accepts that the NIAO report recommendations and every effort to improve monitoring will be made in the coming months, he states that it's important to emphasise that for most of the procedures listed, the EUR commissioning policy does not mean that these procedures cannot be performed, but rather that there are clinical criteria to follow in the decision making that must be applied. These criteria will reflect common practice, and for this reason, any savings would be lower than the levels projected by the Northern Ireland Audit Office. Members, are you content to note?
Enter.
Yeah, thank you. And ask members, would you be in agreement to refer the Northern Ireland Audit Office report on restricted procedures and our letter from Mike Farrar to the Health Committee? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's grand, thank you. If I could refer members to page 3 of the table pack to a clerk's memo which provides an overview of the key insights from the PAC BIMR network event, and ask the clerk to give us a briefing, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so this is just a brief overview of the main highlights. The members that were there in attendance may want to comment afterwards. So the first one, there was a first observation really is that a lot of the issues that were discussed at the meeting are very similar to the sorts of issues that come up here. Some of the key ones that were discussed were delays in the production of annual accounts. So there was this seemed to be a reoccurring theme across all jurisdictions, and obviously delays in cascade and delays in audit and delayed scrutiny as well. Another area then, there was a lot of discussion around health data in relation to health spending, and again how that is collected, and some of the issues around unreliable or inconsistent data. The example of the large-scale GP survey, access to general practice by this PAC was highlighted as a way of collecting data to compensate for weaknesses in official data systems. Major capital projects, there was a workshop on that, and that had some sort of interesting observations as well. And again, there was sort of problems across jurisdictions around governance gaps, shortage in specialist skills, prolonged planning delays, and a number of other issues that would lead to cost escalation. And what sort of one of the conclusions of this was that it's, the earlier you start the scrutiny, the better. So that was a learning point. Tracking recommendations, PAC recommendations, there was a lot of discussion on that and examples of how other PACs have been tackling that. So there were some interesting examples from Jersey in particular about how they had set up a very robust system for tracking the implementation of recommendations. However, it was stressed that, it's important that it's a risk-based approach that sets out the consequences of inaction. I think the point being that if you're going to track recommendations, then there needs to be some sort of consequences at the other end, and that was something that I don't think all PACs had, sort of quite, sort of got to the bottom of. But it was also suggested that it's important to highlight when departments have implemented recommendations successfully. So there's possibly some follow-on work from that, just in learning from other jurisdictions. Public engagement was another area that there was a lot of interest in, and members from this PAC were able to provide examples of where this committee has done, quite a lot of that sort of engagement. There's some work then around PPP, traditional structures, and best practice guidance. And I suppose in conclusion, embed early stage scrutiny of major projects, strengthen the tracking of recommendations, give greater visibility to successful implementation when that does happen, integrate public engagement more systematically into PAC inquiries, and ensure that themes are reflected in legacy reports for incoming PACs. So there was a lot that was covered in that one-day event, which had a plenary session and then broke up into workshops afterwards, and this is a summary of all of those various areas.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much for that. A great summary, and it's good whenever you can see common themes of work across the different PACs, and so I think that's a really good summary of that. Are members content to note this and share PAC? Cathal?
Just want to thank the staff for putting together the report together. I mean, clearly for ourselves, Chair, I mean, it was a good learning experience, but when you look at it, some of these jurisdictions are smaller than ours. And when you see the challenges they're facing in all of those things, I mean, when you look at other bigger institutions, I mean, if we are seeing that at that level and they're having difficulties, well then there is big challenges, and it's a good learning curve for us all. And there was some I just want to pick out some of the key points. I think the tracking idea is an excellent idea, I mean, in terms of the way that the submissions were on the day, and I mean obviously those documentation and whatever correspondence can be shared around with the committee, but I think it's something we as a committee certainly can learn from, and like I say, those two big things I'm taking out of is how smaller jurisdictions are finding the exact same challenges in terms of spend, in terms of capital. I mean, when you look at the Isle of Man and Jersey, and when you see they're saying we have difficulties with capital, we're difficulties with budgets, and it's replicated on a bigger jurisdiction with a bigger spend, then there's good learning from it. Because if they can't do it at that level and get up, but there's some good learning from it. So big challenges, but it was very good exercise for us, and there's some learnings out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cathal. I think you made the point, and Nisha's made the point as well, that we don't often track the recommendations through and congratulate good news, because quite often they have actually achieved something. It's not something that naturally comes through, and whenever the audit office aren't going in to do a follow-up report on something, we don't really have the opportunity to react to that and capture it to say it's good to see the committee's recommendation following through. So I definitely think that's a good point. But members, are you content to note this piece of work and share with the CNAG?
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks very much. So moving to agenda item 6, correspondence. If I could refer members to page 22 of your meeting pack. There's a correspondence from a neurology action group, Neurology Recall. In the letter, the group are raising concerns about the Department of Health's financial role in the neurology recall litigation and the related disciplinary proceedings. The group is concerned about the Department of Health's use of the Crown Indemnity Scheme in the neurology recall litigation. And members, this letter raises some very serious concerns about the potential use of public funds to finance legal defences, and suggests that this falls squarely within the PAC's remit. And the clerk has advised that further advice is needed on 2 points. Firstly, on how the Crown Indemnity Scheme operates in practice, and second, whether this matter properly sits with us here in the Public Accounts Committee, or, for example, the Health Committee, or with NIPSO. So I would ask members for their agreement that the clerk seeks further advice from the relevant officials on who is best placed to consider this issue, including whether there is any link to the recent contingent liability correspondence, and the committee return to this once advice is available.
Agreed, Chair.
Agreement. Thanks very much. And just at this point, where we're seeing a few things coming through in terms of correspondence and things that have been raised to us here in PAC of a health nature, I just wanted to raise the point that where we are seeing them coming through, we appreciate that people are reaching out to us and they see us as a place to come with these, and where there have been issues raised. And where there have been issues raised with concerns over whistleblowing policies and some wider health issues, I think that it's really, really important that we take these on board and take the full advice and consider with the Health Committee to make sure that things are getting picked up where they're coming through. So we'll take this advice and certainly take all these issues very seriously. So.
Sure, on that point, may I just suggest, I take it the chairs on the Chairs Liaison Group, yeah, Daniel. So some of these issues, not specific issues, but the very fact that people are writing to different committees, and I use us as an example today, I would suggest that issue should be raised at the Chairperson Liaison Group, and how we handle all of those things come to committee, because there may be a responsibility. I agree with us getting legal advice on the matters previous, but in terms of this here, I think there's an opportunity for this issue to be raised at the Chairperson Liaison Group, highlighting some of the things we get, so that all the chairs can say, because if it lands with DFI and it's not an issue, it's a single issue, it belongs to an MLA, those advice should be handed out. But clearly, in our work right across all the committees, we're not getting the message out to the general public who should write this and who's not, and where the responsibility is. And it should be a proper discussion at Chairperson Liaison, to be honest, to bring some advice back. And I think that wouldn't be a bad suggestion.
No, definitely. Everyone content? Yeah. Thank you. So you're not okay. So we're moving to agenda item 7, memorandums of reply, and refer members to page 26 of their pack to an update from Neil Gibson, Department of Finance, updating the committee on the MOR on the PAC report on major capital projects follow-up, and to page 29 of the meeting pack to correspondence from Jane Byrne from Northern Ireland Civil Service Board, which members noted at last week's meeting. Members, are you content to note Neil's letter today alongside the independent effectiveness review, and to review it in more detail before the evidence session, which we have scheduled with him on the 22nd of January?
Agreed, Chair.
Agreed. Thank you. We could refer members to page 62 of their pack to an update from Hugh Wittes, Department of Justice, providing a further clarity around recommendations 2 and 3 on the MOR on adult reoffending in Northern Ireland. Members, in relation to recommendation 2, which was not accepted, the department says that work is underway to enhance outcome measurement, and they have prioritised resources to harness data from across government to develop an outcome measurement dashboard. However, they point out that this will need support from across government. Members, in relation to recommendation 3, which was to finalise the cross-government offending and reoffending within 6 months by December 2025, the department had said in the MOR that this was not possible, and instead committed to a strategic framework by March 2026, data sharing agreements by September 2027, and strategy being in place by December 2027. And just to remind members that the committee had thought this was too far away and that the strategy would only be targeted to be completed after this mandate. And members, in the follow-up letter, the department says that the strategic framework will be completed by December 2026, 3 months earlier than they previously had said, and it also commits to having the strategy out for consultation by the end of the mandate. So just want to seek members' views on the correspondence. No? No? Okay. So members, would you be content to note this and request a further update in 12 months' time, where we would specifically request the following in relation to recommendation 2, an update on the progress made on the outcome measurement dashboard, and in relation to recommendation 3, an update on progress and to confirm if they're still on target to get the strategy out for consultation by the end of this mandate, and on the data sharing agreements. Members content?
And do we respond back? Do we correspond with the Justice Committee in terms of what our decision is today, or we don't have to do that, do we?
Well, if you, yes, you could share
Just
that.
write them, say this is this what was, yeah, just keep them in the loop, yeah.
Yeah, because then it's, you know, sort of.
Oh, at least it's on
over
record
them.
for us. That one,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Members agreed? Okay, thanks very much. So moving to agenda item 8, which is the Disclaimed Department for the Economy Accounts, and I'd like to welcome to the meeting Dorinnia Carville, the Controller and Auditor General. Want to join us, Dorinnia? Thank you. So if we could refer members to page 68 of their pack to the 24-25 annual report and accounts for the Department for Economy, the CNAG report, and to page 74 to the correspondence from Ian Snowden, the Department for Economy, concerning an update from the Department for the Economy on the 24-25 group annual report and accounts. And I would propose considering the departmental letter first and then looking at the CNAG's report, which gives members the wider context. And members, the CNAG's report acknowledges some progress, but also highlights that the audit remains highly challenging and resource intensive. So, let's see. Yeah, okay, so while the department's letter presents the 24-25 accounts as showing some improvement and narrowing the issues, the CNAG's report sets out a far more serious position, including unresolved material errors from last year, inadequate accounting records, unauditable information from the Northern Regional College, and an inability to assure either truth and fairness or regularity across the department. And yeah, members, have any views on the letter from Ian Snowden? Just on my reading of the letter, initially I was disappointed just to see us continuing in this. So just to remind members back to last year's accounts, this was the first time that a government department's accounts were disclaimed. This isn't just a qualified report, it's actually a disclaimed opinion, which is the most serious audit opinion that could be raised. And I think I'm right in saying that it was the first time a departmental set of accounts had ever been disclaimed. And so that was from last year, and we knew that the opening balances of this year would be affected. And as we move forward, it's obviously affecting the 24-25, but Ian's also then referring to next year's as well. So I was a bit disappointed to hear, his reference just to presume that it would be disclaimed again next year, because I remember previously CNAG saying that that is for her and her office to make that opinion as and when it comes. So I just feel a bit concerned that whenever we had it in last year's as disclaimed accounts, it was exceptional. It was an awful opinion. It's came into this year and it's just presumed next year. It's almost become an expected norm, and I'm just a little bit concerned at that tone coming through on the letter. But we'll just take other members' views here on this, Padraig.
Thanks, Chair. And just at the outset, just to declare an interest as a member of the Economy Committee and also as our party spokesperson on the economy as well. But I mean, I think, look, it is concerning. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I think that what is important to note on here is I do think in the response it's been very, to me, it was very transparent in terms of the rationale why. And I think when we had Ian in, obviously prior to this, we did all have a lot of questions. I think that gave a degree of clarity on it. But my understanding, and I mean, we can certainly check this, but my understanding was that because the accounts were in that state last year, that would automatically have a rollover for this year, and that they were expecting that. Now, I mean, I'm happy to kind of have other members' feedback on that, but I understood that the issue would roll over to this year, and that would be the case. I thought when we had that briefing that was our understanding, but I'm certainly happy to revert to Dorinnia on that as well. But look, there is a need for openness. There's a need for transparency on it. I do think that this clarifies the issue. It doesn't make it any less concerning, but I think that was something that certainly I was under the assumption that we were anticipating that might be the case this year.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, reading the letter, because we've had the discussion, I'm just trying to think in what way we as the committee can handle this, because to be fair, yes, it is concerning, but it was highlighted. My point for us, Chair, is in talking to Dorinnia here, how we can move this process forward, because we know that's there and could happen to any department. It so happens that it's come the first time here. We've outlined the actual problems, and we know that the department's trying to address this specific issue. And until, if we're still saying that we believe there was a period of time that was given for somebody to address this matter, that's a different issue for us as a committee. But I mean, for me, some of the answers given so far, they've tried to address it. It's slightly outside their control at the minute. It is within their premise to deal with it. And I'm just trying to find, Chair, what's the best way. And I'm not defending any department in this here. I'm just looking at realistically what we can do as a committee. We've been given a reasonable answer in relation to how the department's conducting its business at the minute, but it's how we take it forward, to be honest, because that means it could possibly run into next year again. I mean, that's 3 years in a row, Chair. So where do we go with? And it's really probably a question for ourselves in terms of our scrutiny role, but also in terms of Dorinnia, what she knows, if there's anything else they've alluded to making progress, but there's more to be done. So it's just for ourselves. We need to have this open discussion and find out what's the best way forward, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Okay, just firstly to declare, same as Patrick, declare an interest and member of the Economy Committee and spokesperson for the economy. It is really concerning. The bit for me in this, I am probably one of the hardest on the department within the committee continually, but I have to give credit where credit's due here, because there is movement and there is change, and I'm begrudgingly doing that, but slightly tongue in cheek. But we are seeing change. So they came to the committee, and we are seeing the realignment of the university years and stuff for things that is underway. The student loan stuff is underway, and the sort of the improvement there. The regional college, Northern Regional College, was the one that was concerning. So I think at the very start we said it, or I think Dorinnia said, she can confirm that, but it was 3 years this could take to roll out. The bit for me is, if we didn't see any progress at all, it would be really going to town. But whenever a department is making progress, I think we need to sort of welcome that progress, just hope they make it faster and kind of do it. But I'd be more interested in hearing Dorinnia's kind of opinion on what that of how they come out of it. But it is really concerning that this is the case. It was last year whenever it came through.
And just to follow on that, as I say, you know, if you just read Ian's letter, you'd think everything is really improving, but just to refer everyone back to Dorinnia's actual audit report for 24-25, which is still highlighting considerable issues. So just, Dorinnia, if we go over to you, and I would be particularly interested to know, like, so it does seem quite isolated to a lot of the issues being with Northern Regional College, and I don't know whether you feel that the department should be doing more to address that, you know, as an issue in isolation, and also just any sort of idea as this hugely significant work with a disclaimed opinion for your office. Presumably, again, this has put a lot of extra cost on the audit and time pressures within your office and continues to do so. So just if you have any comments there, Dorinnia, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. And yeah, I think just to address the time frame, first of all, you're right. This is a 3-year journey from last year. Or it was always to be a 3-year journey. And to put it very simply, it's to unravel this disclaimer to get us back to where we hopefully will get to. It's 2 years from the year you get it right. And that had been the emphasis this year, was for the department to try and make considerable efforts that this year of account, the 24-25, would be the year you get it right, the starting point of the unravelling. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that, so that 3-year trajectory rolls on. And that is, I suppose, a matter of concern. Now, that said, I would recognise progress, and hopefully that is reflected in the report. We have seen improvements this year, particularly around that group consolidation process. And I said to you when I was in before, it is a complex group and a complex consolidation process. And you're quite right, David, we do know that efforts are being taken to try and make that less complex where the department can, by getting coterminous year ends, etc. So that will help on that journey. There are some significant issues which remain, and you will see that there are significant issues with the Northern Regional College, and again, we do know of a lot of activity that is going on there to try, and a lot of emphasis to try and improve things there. There are still some issues with the group accounts. The group accounts that were submitted for audit still had problems. We were still getting new versions of them, and some of the significant primary statements during the accounts process, the audit process. But that said, there was progress. So I think this is quite complicated. There are many factors affecting this disclaimed opinion. We've seen progress in some and not in others, I think is what's fair to say. And I think you're quite right, Cathal, to say concern should remain, because until we can get to an unqualified position, I cannot give assurances that public money is being spent appropriately with regard to the truth, the fairness, the regularity of that spend. So unfortunately I can't give the wider assembly those assurances in relation to this large department until we get there. But hopefully you'll see from the report we do try and specify those areas of particular concern, and they're the ones, not to say that other areas are not of concern. So it is it sort of continues to be a journey. We do see considerable efforts, and to be fair to the department, they did work very cooperatively with us. There is reference to student loans, and I think it would be remiss not to point out that we do remain concerned. Next year there's a move to a new model, and that might bring benefit, it might also bring problems, which any new computer system sometimes does. So unfortunately we'll have to wait and see how that goes. With regard to your question, Chair, about the impact on our office, it continues to be a considerable piece of work for the office. Now, because we knew at the outset of this process this year that even with the best will in the world we would be in a disclaimed position, you'll recall last year this audit didn't conclude until the following March. We, with the accounting officer's agreement, essentially drew a line under this to meet the statutory deadline. And we did that in the public interest in terms of the public money spent on both facilitating an audit and making further adjustments. So there has been progress in that way as well. But the problems persist going forward, and it will still remain a considerable piece of work for my office and a considerable resource input for both the department and for my office until we unravel this.
Thanks very much on that one, Dorinnia. In terms of the student loans, financial assets, so £4.4 billion sitting on the balance sheet as the value of student loans, and again, you know, you've disclaimed that opinion. When exactly will the change in methodology for calculating that be in place, and we'll start to see that coming through in the accounts where you can actually give a full opinion on that?
So the last I have heard, so the new model has gone live in other jurisdictions. Last I have heard, it is still on course to go live here, and again, I would, you know, the department can confirm this, but my understanding is still due to go live here on the 1st of April, which means that next year's accounts, we will see a new model in place. So, but that said, we will obviously have to understand that model, accept a considerable piece of work there, and I just, there is a risk with any new system, a new calculation as well. That said, other jurisdictions have gone before, and I know the department are already working quite closely with the Department for the Economy in England to understand that new model, to understand any changes to processes, but we haven't got into the detail of it yet.
Okay, thanks very much. In terms of this and our primacy around, you know, the disclaimed opinion and you bringing this here, I just wanted to speak a bit to that and what you know, the expectation would be of, you know, the economy committee and involvement here, because obviously with primacy we're speaking to you on this, you know, this qualified opinion, but obviously the accounts and the governance structures of the Department for the Economy, you know, are still something, you know, within that committee, and in particular the governance around the Northern Regional College. Do you think that this committee should be liaising in any particular way with the economy committee on this, or have you briefed the economy committee on any of these issues, or just I just wanted a wee bit of clarity around that, because I don't want this to be coming to us with all these significant concerns and there being an assumption that we're really getting into the detail of them here in this committee, you know. Cathal?
No,
just to confirm, I've provided no briefing to the Economy Committee on this, but I do understand that the Economy Committee has heard from the department on it, but I've provided no direct briefing to the committee.
Which I suppose Dorinnia may not be able to answer this, but I'll put the question out, because I'm thinking our responsibility and what we can do, to be honest. So the disclaimer's going to sit till we're satisfied that it achieves what it. The thing for us as a committee, how do we get to a point where we believe that there's a process there that we're going to get there in the end. Now, that's not to say that you don't have to do your annual account, you know what I mean, that report mechanism. And I'm just wondering for ourselves, because this has never you know, come to this committee, not my time, and it's never come before, but I'm just trying for ourselves the best way out of it is it a situation where we do actually need to liaise now with the economy committee and we kept abreast? Because you'll keep coming back to us and we'll keep having the same conversation. What we want is a solution, obviously. And I'm just trying to figure out the best way for us, because it sits with us now. We've had the conversation. You know, if we try to put a tracker on it to try and see how things are, I don't know, is the case we hand, but it's not a situation of us hand this over to the economy, because this is something we need to deal with ourselves. I'm just trying to figure out, it's all new and it's all new learning ourselves, how we try and get around this here and try and, you know, do our work as our PSE group, but try also to work with the department, because it seems to me they're trying the best to overcome this and they're trying to address it. David sits in another committee and he's getting more information and different information for ourselves, sir. So I'm just trying to figure that all out and try and solidify it and you know, amalgamate it and bring it all together so we can deal with it as a committee, if you understand where I'm coming from. So I don't know, Chair. I mean, if there is any suggestions, I mean that.
Whenever the department have come in the committee, and here at the Clarity, just that this is the bit we are kind of split between the two, but whenever the department come in, they don't answer. so they'll go, and that sits with public PAC, and they so whenever you go to ask a question, I tried to at one of the sessions they were in, they just close it down and go, no, that sits there, it's not with this committee. So there is a bit where the committee doesn't get the full kind of oversight of that, but I understand too, this is the kind of public accounts committee.
It's
a thing. So that I suppose the bit for me, Dorinnia, is really that the 3 years, that's well explained, because I assumed it was the 3 years before you would be out. I didn't realise 2 years were clean. But the bit with so what we were told, was the April was when the transfer would happen for the accounts for the student or for the university stuff. But the Northern Regional College is the one that. So what is happening with that? Because that's or is that the biggest item that's causing this? Is really it? Is it? And I know they told us there's work happening there, but are you seeing that, or can you see that by the end of this financial year that'll be out the other end?
So student loans is definitely the biggest number, if you like. So that is driving it, and that is simply by virtue of the magnitude of that number. And that'll always be a big audit area for us going forward. So that does remain a potential issue going forward. With regard to the Northern Regional College, there remains quite significant problems in there. I still have not certified yet the 23-24 year of account. It then will have its own set of statutory accounts which go into more detail, if you like, than the element that we look at for the group consolidation, and we hope to be in a position to finalise 23-24. So the problems, really remain there. I'm hoping that we will be getting to a position where I can certify those by the end of this calendar year. I haven't yet got sufficient evidence. I couldn't say to you at this point what my audit opinion will be, because we haven't concluded that work, so I couldn't say, but certainly it has been a problematic audit and continues to be. We will then start 24-25 as well. So, but what you can see for the purposes of the consolidation of 24-25, we couldn't get sufficient assurances on the Northern Regional College. So there is quite a legacy of an issue there. And I suppose maybe to pick up on Cahill's point, I don't know if Lucia wants to come in on the primacy piece. I'll maybe let Lucia talk first, and then I'll talk to you about what I can do.
Well, I think the first thing to point out, and it's really, following on from Cahill, is that this is it is unusual, and it's one really that PAC hasn't had to deal with before. So in terms of primacy, I don't believe it's clear cut.
Well, that's why I'm raising it.
Yeah, and I don't think that the guidance is, I don't think we have sufficient guidance to determine where this should sit. Because if you look at it, the primacy, it's around the disclaimed accounts, but that's, one set of accounts, then you have the next set of accounts. Yeah, so what's supposed to happen in between time? And I think that's maybe where this is becoming a bit, troublesome in terms of, well, what else can be done and in terms of scrutiny. So I think maybe what would be best would be that I take this away and I have discussions with my colleagues just to try and bottom this out in terms of primacy, the interpretation of it, and how it can be applied in a way that's not going to actually hold up scrutiny, because there are wider issues here in terms of the governance issues within within the department and the Northern Regional College. So that would be my suggestion, if you were content with that through the chair.
I think that would be good, and I appreciate that, because, and I know David's saying it like it's a conflict, but I think that it's a good thing to hear that. No, but I think that's really good to hear that perspective, because, where we have primacy over an opinion on an accounts, there's an entire hugely funded government department and arm's length bodies operating every year in between, and I don't think that it's satisfactory that officials would go to economy committee and say that they can't talk about things
100%.
because there's primacy on public accounts committee, because our primacy is not over the operations and the running of the Department of Economy and, you know, its bodies and the financial governance around that. So I think that I think that would be a really good idea if the clerk went away and spoke with economy clerk and colleagues around that. Would members be in agreement with that?
Chair,
Yeah, Cathal?
and just a final point, because it's quite interesting, and that's what I said, it's new to us. The point is, you have a department that's responsible for all this, which we are holding account here, and then you have other factors which outside of that that's causing the issues that we've. And the way I say it, and David's right. I don't know whether they could answer in a statutory committee that duty or not, because that's where the questions lie. But I'm only trying to bring it back to our responsibility, and the way it sits at the minute, it's, you know, we have to go after the department. The department is responsible for the rest underneath all that. But it's an unusual one, and it's never come before. And to do proper due diligence on it for us, we have to find out what's causing the issues, and then whoever needs to come up with that solution to deal with, then we will look at it and say. And I do agree that it needs to go back to other committees and just see. I don't fault anybody not having, as a statutory committee, David asking questions. They're entitled to do that. But for us, that's a different issue. Do you know what I mean? So listen, we've had a good chat about it, but Dorinnia might have some solutions, some suggestions.
Anything you want to add to that, Doreen?
No, I think we're probably right just to wait and see what comes back on primacy as well. And yeah.
I think on that one, obviously, you know, comparing it to other reports we have, the PAC piece is the disclaimed accounts. The recommendation is that you're moving away from being disclaimed. Here's the process for better accounting. But the actual operational and governance issues that sit alongside that do need to be dealt with on an operational basis in the economy committee. So it's just how you strip it out in such an unusual circumstance. But I do think, you know, we've had the Permanent Secretary out, we have his correspondence. You know, I do believe that there is a will there to be open and transparent all round on it. I don't think that anybody's trying to, you know, intentionally, you know, prevent anything coming either way. But I think in the interests of full and complete governance, it would be the best thing if the clerk was to take the action as agreed. So if everyone's happy, we'll move forward with that. Thank you very much. Is anyone anything else they want to raise under that item? No? Okay, thanks very much. So members will now move into closed session. Everyone's in agreement?